The Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations will now come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess of the subcommittee at any time. The subcommittee is meeting today to hear testimony on unleashing American energy dominance and exploring new frontiers. Under Committee Rule 4F, any oral opening statements at the hearings are limited to the chairman and a ranking member. I therefore ask unanimous consent that all other members' statements be made part of the hearing record if they are submitted in accordance with Committee Rule 3.0. Without objection, so ordered. I ask unanimous consent that the following members be allowed to sit and participate in today's hearing. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Stauber. The gentleman from Montana, Mr. Downing. The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Owens. Without objection, so ordered. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank our witnesses for traveling all the way to Washington, D.C. to testify before this committee today. It's going to be a fun hearing. Throughout the 119th Congress, this subcommittee has held hearings addressing and discussing the 21st century realities of mining industry and how modern mining technologies are revolutionizing America's ability to secure domestic mineral supply chains. In fact, during the last year, the House Committee on Natural Resources has highlighted exciting advancements in mining on the seafloor and in space to not only explore new mineral frontiers, but to also understand how these technologies can be applied to terrestrial mining within our nation's borders. Today, we'll learn more about how these advances are propelling us forward towards mineral and energy dominance. As everyone here is surely aware, our modern demands have made critical minerals and rare earth elements essential to daily life, from things ranging from smartphones and semiconductor chips to Virginia-class submarines and F-35s. Mined natural resources are fundamental building blocks for almost every aspect of our daily lives. And over the next few decades, the importance of these resources in mining will only continue to grow. Unfortunately, previous years of overbearing federal regulations have stymied the United States' world leadership in mineral production. The work we are doing in Congress and on the House Natural Resources Committee is prioritizing the mining industry and addressing the issues facing domestic mining. So far, this Congress Natural Resources Committee has considered 14 pieces of legislation relating to mining issues. And just before Thanksgiving, the committee reported both my friends' and colleagues' bills, Congressman Amadei's Mining Regulatory Clarity Act and Congressman Stauber's Critical Mineral Dominance Act, to the House floor. In addition, we were able to report Chairman Westerman's Bipartisan Speed Act legislation that will support critical permitting reforms necessary not only for mining, but for industries as varied as construction and farming. The White House has also recognized the importance of addressing the need for increased American mineral productivity as well. Within the first month of his second term, President Trump signed Executive Order 14241, titled Immediate Measures to Increase American Mineral Production. This executive order invokes emergency powers from the Defense Production Act to fund or direct production, issue contracts, and streamline approvals for critical minerals necessary for the national defense and other essential industries. My amendment, included in the House-passed NDAA, requires the Department of Defense and Department of Interior to report to Congress on the United States supply of rare earth minerals and elements extracted, processed, and refined from secure sources to advance the next generation of warfighters. These actions are necessary to confront the national energy emergency and make American mining great again. America is the land of opportunity and innovations, especially in my hometown, home state of Arizona. Tech companies are leading the way in artificial intelligence and robotics, which now touch every industry, including mining. If the United States is to remain a global leader, we must expand domestic mineral production and secure our mineral supply chains. Technological advances allow us to do so. These advances won't only evolve the mining industry's technology, they will radically change the workforce within mining as well. 1,449 students graduated from mining schools in 2015, but only 590 students graduated from these schools in 2023. This is a shocking 60% decrease over the last decade. It is estimated that 220,000 workers are expected to retire from the current mining workforce by 2029. This is a massive shift that can be addressed with innovation and increased job opportunities. With advancements in mining coming from automation, AI, cloud computing, the talent pool for mining can expand to workers who were never or are not traditional mining, do not have non-traditional backgrounds such as computer science and robotics to meet this workforce need. In short, there is a vocation for everyone in mining, in that mining industry. Today, we'll hear from our witnesses representing some of the companies driving the mining industry forward about the important work being done to make sure that America remains a global leader. Thank you, and I now recognize the Ranking Member Dexter for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a hearing on a topic with real bipartisan potential. The potential for new technological achievements and advancements to improve mineral yields while reducing the damage done to mines and surrounding communities is significant. As a nod to that potential, our witness will testify at the invitation, who has come to testify at the invitation of both sides of the aisle in the past. I hope we can find a way to work together on this issue. But I want to be clear that these technological advances are not an excuse to shred environmental and human health protections. There is no good reason to think that the potential for these technologies to do good necessarily means that they will do so, especially if we remove the guardrails Congress has placed on them. Decades of experience show us that extractive industries, when left unchecked, do not protect health or ecosystems on which we depend. In fact, these new technological advances, if anything, mean we need to strengthen protections to keep pace with the technology. We can start with the mining law of 1872, which passed in the Civil War era. If you want to speed up the permitting process, then fund it. When you chronically underfund permitting offices, fire staff, and sideline science, you guarantee more conflict, more litigation, and more delays. When Democrats invested $1 billion in permitting capacity and modern tools under the Biden administration, timelines got over 20% shorter, even as environmental health protections remained in place. If your concern is being at a competitive disadvantage relative to China, the truth is that the United States is already a mining superpower. The question is not whether we mine, but how we mine, what we do with what we have already dug up, and who actually benefits from the choices we make. Robotics, AI, and advanced processing are making it possible to get more minerals out of existing mines than out of tailings, coal, ash, and brines, all material that used to be written off as waste. Deployed wisely, these technologies can make mining safer, cleaner, and more productive so that we meet rising demand without actually using our public lands as a balance sheet, as Secretary Burgum has called them. In fact, according to a study by the Colorado School of Mines released just a few months ago, the United States already has access to most of the critical materials we need in existing mining operations. That study found that 90% recovery of critical minerals byproducts from existing domestic metal mines could meet nearly all U.S. critical mineral needs, and that even recovering around 1% of those byproducts would substantially reduce dependence on most foreign materials. It is also worth pointing out that my friends on the other side seem very worried about losing economic leadership to China for a party that is handing the energy of the future to our global competitors. President Trump is trying to kill job-creating clean energy projects that would help meet the increasing energy demand my Republican colleagues claim is desperate. Trump canceled the Esmeralda 7 solar project in Nevada that reportedly would have provided up to 6 gigawatts of power, or enough to supply up to 2 million homes. He attacked several offshore wind projects on the East Coast, including one that was near completion. He even took away the rooftop solar for people with disabilities to help keep them alive after a hurricane in Puerto Rico. These losses and so many other attacks on renewables hand over our global economic and leadership advantage to our competitors, placing us at the same technological disadvantage Trump claims to worry about when talking about China's critical minerals dominance. We must demand global leadership in critical minerals, in renewable energy, in strong labor standards, and in protecting ecological and human health. Pitting one against the other undermines our economy, our security, and our health. It's also not feasible. Cutting environmental protections, judicial review, or community input risks undermining the very trust and sustainability that makes supply chains resilient in the first place. The real choice before us is not between drill and mine everything or do nothing. We must pursue the third option here and design a responsible strategy that meets demand, protects communities, and preserves our environment. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about how we can choose the former path and finally align our mining, our energy policy, and our rhetoric with the long-term interests of the American people. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Westerman from Arkansas.
Thank you, Mr. Gosar, Chairman Gosar, and to the witnesses for being here today. Appreciate you taking time to come and share your valuable testimony with us. Over the last few years, shifting trade dynamics and economic trends have highlighted just how important mining is to the modern world. Currently, tech companies make up approximately 34% of the S&P 500. That's the largest of any sector. Each of these companies and many other industries are reliant on the natural resources obtained from mines for their businesses to function. Whether it's gallium used in semiconductor chips for AI, copper used in servers at data centers or transmission, or rare earth elements used in consumer electronics, the need for these minerals is unquestionable. In the United States, it takes an average of 29 years to build a new mine from the first stage of exploration all the way up to production. We are second only in length to Zambia. I don't know what they're doing wrong in Zambia, but it must be really bad if it takes them longer than it does here to develop a mine. And we chuckle about that, but that's unacceptable. This is the United States of America. We should be able to develop a mine in less than 29 years. A big step in reducing the lengthy timeline is leveraging our technological innovation here in the United States. The other half of this puzzle is solving the arduous permitting process to bring much-needed domestically produced minerals into the supply chain. Last month in this committee, we reported our bipartisan NEPA reform bill, the SPEED Act, to the House for consideration. The SPEED Act would reform NEPA, which is one of the most litigated pieces of legislation, one that has caused far too many projects to be delayed or outright canceled across many industries. And that's not just mining. It's from transportation and infrastructure projects to energy transmission, whether that's pipelines or transmission lines, seaports, airports, railroads, forestry. The list goes on and on how NEPA's been abused. And it has hit mining especially hard. As we look at new investments in mining and the technology we'll be hearing about today, I also want to take a moment to talk about something that you may not expect from a hearing on mining, and that's how we're going to learn a bit more about how the mining industry, and particularly from some of our witnesses, we'll be talking about education, the importance of educating the workforce and the leaders in the mining area as we move forward. I know not long after I got to Congress, I found out because of the Gold King mine spill, which was totally caused by the federal government. They didn't have any engineers working on the project because it's hard to find mining engineers anymore. And they couldn't hire engineers, so they didn't use engineers. And guess what? A couple of guys got out on a backhoe and poked a hole in the plug and drained all those chemicals into the King River. Education is an extremely important part, and sometimes we forget to talk about those things. To have new technology and new investments in mining, we have to have the education component. We have to be innovative. If we want to have things like robotics that assist in drilling, if we want to have AI-assisted mining exploration, if we want to have novel forms of lithium extraction and more, we need to train the future leaders. And this hearing that we're having today is a great opportunity where we can talk about how we pair the hope of permitting reform and signal to our younger generation that mining is the future, And in the world we live in today, there's not much of a future without mining. Many of you may have read the Wall Street Journal article that said China mines 70% of the world's minerals today. 70%. It gets worse than that. They process 90%. These are things that are critical to our national security. We have to wake up and start doing things here in America again and start doing it the right way. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses. I look forward to hearing how your technologies are helping to bring the mining industry into a new technological age. Chairman Gosar, I commend you on having this hearing, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I'll now introduce our first panel of witnesses. We'll have Mr. Daniel Donahue, Head of Growth, Terra AI, San Francisco, California. Mr. Mahesh Kanduru, did I say it right? Oh, Chief Executive Officer, Momentum Technologies, New Carrollton, Texas. Mr. Walter Copan, did I say it right? PhD, Vice President of Research and Technology, Colorado School of Mines, my dad's place where he graduated from. And Mr. Nicholas Lugansky, Head of Mining, SLB, New Energy, Houston, Texas. Let me remind the witnesses that under the committee rules, you must limit your oral statements to 5 minutes, but your entire statement will be made for the record. You'll see a little light when you start, and it starts at green. When it turns to yellow, you got about a minute to wrap up. When it's red, you need to stop, okay? And you'll get lots of questions after that, okay? So also make sure that you push your button so that we can hear you, okay? So now I recognize Mr. Donahue for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Members of the House Natural Services Committee, or Natural Resource Committee, thank you for having me here today. My name is Daniel Donahue. I'm the head of growth at Terra AI, a mining technology startup backed by Coastal Ventures and Rio Tinto. I was trained as a geologist, one of the several thousand we graduate in this country every year. And I am proud to work in a small office in Silicon Valley where any of you can come visit and find geologists from Shell, Schlumberger, NASA, and the Colorado School of Mines sitting next to AI engineers from Meta, Google, and Stanford. It's a very unique place where scientific firsts occur on a monthly basis. We are working hard to produce a truly great American AI company for mining. At Terra, we build an AI that understands the formation of minerals and geology, and that can model deposits in the many complex and different ways that they formed. A geologist like me would produce one model over several weeks or months. We can produce thousands in just minutes. Our partners deploy this AI on their deposits to understand the possibilities and likelihoods of what could be there and make better, more efficient decisions under intense geologic uncertainty. Terra AI vastly speeds up exploration by nearly half and reduces inherent geologic risk that makes mining difficult to invest in. We work with mining majors like BHP and Rio Tinto, smaller firms like Wyoming's Ramaco Resources, and even energy companies like Petrobras and OMV. People ask me why such young, talented folks in Silicon Valley would leave high-paying AI jobs to work long hours for an industry perceived as archaic, dirty, and niche. My answer is that this is probably the most important thing we can do with our time. Let me tell you why. The speed, efficiency, and success rates of resource exploration are a core lever to our nation's progress. Every 1 gigawatt data center we build requires 2.5% of America's annual output of copper, 17% of our output of gold, 7% of our output of silver. For our energy overhaul, we need 600 new big mines across commodities, more than exists today in the US, Canada, and Europe combined. Our task is both to replace today's rival-dominated base and simultaneously bring online 4 to 6x more metal in a very short period of time. However, our ability to explore and develop new mines is slowing down. Even if we permitted and built every mine in the global minerals pipeline tomorrow, we would still see gaps of 30 to 50% across commodities, big and small. Copper prices are up, for instance. Demand is skyrocketing. But in the past 30 years, new resource additions are down 80% globally, and discoveries are 16x more costly. We have run out of easy things to find at the surface. We must look deeper where our old ways are not working as well. So we have a pivotal moment right now where we can get exploration right and win the hundreds of deposits needed for AI, energy, and national security, or get it wrong and have to make some tough decisions. So what are the core problems we can solve with AI? We can get 90% economic false positives down to 20 to 50%, so we do not put good money after bad on sub-economic sites. We can shorten exploration timelines. And if we do that, we can make mining and exploration more attractive to private investment. We can grow our geology workforce and make it more efficient. We can do all of this while reducing environmental impact, reopening old mines with a second look from AI, and increasing high-paying blue-collar jobs downstream. If technologies like ours are adopted at scale, we can change the process and win the hundreds of mines that will define our future. It is important to note that this is not only our vision, but America's heritage. Americans created the modern mining industry. 100 years ago, it was an American mining engineer who pioneered flotation processing. That same mining engineer explored and developed deposits in Broken Hill, Australia, and in Rio Tinto, Spain. He was an investor in early English-American mining ventures in South Africa. Those mines became critical years later to America's pre-war industrialization, and those companies became BHP, Broken Hill Proprietary, Rio Tinto, and Anglo-American. This mining engineer would go on to become the 31st president of the United States. His name is Herbert Hoover. So this is in our blood. Today, it is simply history repeating itself that American companies, on the eve of great need, on the backs of brand new innovation, working with our allies and partners, are exploring and winning the deposits that will decide our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Now I recognize Mr. Konduru for his 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Chairman Gosar, Ranking Member Dexter, and distinguished members of the committee and subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Mahesh Konduru, and I'm the CEO for Momentum Technologies. We are a US-based technology company based in Carrollton, Texas. We were founded in 2016. We can process critical minerals, including rare earth elements, such as lithium, nickel, cobalt, copper, from batteries, magnets, byproducts of mining, and other sources. And to clarify what I mean by processing, I am referring to separating valuable minerals from waste materials. We support the subcommittee's oversight efforts to reduce reliance on foreign resources, particularly China, for rare earths and critical minerals. This reliance creates a massive vulnerability, one that is recognized by both political parties. The United States must develop a fully integrated supply chain from mining the ore to producing finished batteries and magnets. This is what is known as mine-to-magnets and mine-to-batteries ecosystems. In our view, the biggest threat to the mine-to-magnet and mine-to-battery supply chain is the processing bottleneck. The question is why? Because 90% of critical minerals and rare earths, as already pointed out here today, are separated and processed in China. This means that even if the metal is mined in the US, it is going to China for processing and then shipped back to the US for final product generation. We want to take China out of the equation, and this is where our technology comes into play. At our demonstration facility in Carrollton, Texas, we developed our proprietary membrane solvent extraction technology in partnership with Oak Ridge National Lab and the US Department of Energy's Critical Minerals Innovation Hub. The technology was also validated with support from the Defense Logistics Agency and the Department of War, and has solid backing from investors including TechMet and Tailwater. In 2025, we delivered commercial-grade battery materials at scale, and recently we expanded our platform for magnet and rare earth recovery, including scaling modular processing capabilities. As a result, we have high recovery rates for both light and heavy rare earth elements. I am proud to say that Momentum Technologies is working towards processing and separating both light and heavy metals at a large scale. And to the best of our knowledge, no company outside China has yet produced a full range of separated rare earths at volume, especially the heavy rare earths like terbium and dysprosium, which are needed in high-performance magnets. Another supply chain challenge this subcommittee is keenly aware of is the lengthy timeline to establish new critical mineral projects and to get them online. Our technology is modular, meaning we can co-locate next to feedstock sources. This reduces the amount of time it takes to issue environmental permits, minimizes community impact, and can demonstrate an immediate return on federal investment. Construction takes approximately 1 year versus 3 to 5 years for conventional processing facilities, and transportation logistics in this scenario are completely eliminated. Congress can help unleash U.S. energy dominance and support new emerging technologies by providing funding for small, modular critical minerals processing projects. These small projects create immediate domestic refining capacity, reduce dependence on foreign supply chains, and build the technical and operational track record that is needed to scale. Federal dollars do not need to fund the whole plant. They just need to de-risk the first module so private capital flows. Momentum Technologies is ready to play an effective role in advancing Congress and the Trump administration's goals to unleash U.S. energy dominance with critical minerals and rare earths that are processed in the United States. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Conduro. Now I recognize Dr. Kopan for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Kozar, Vice Chair Boebert, Ranking Member Dexter, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. It's an honor to join with you today. My name is Walter Kopan. I lead research and technology transfer at Colorado School of Mines. It's the world's top-ranked university for minerals and mining engineering and rated in the top 3 engineering programs in America. Mines is home not only to the nation's longest-standing mining engineering program, but to comprehensive expertise spanning all energy domains. I recently served our nation as director of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and prior with 2 of the U.S. Department of Energy's national labs. My leadership experience spans public and private sectors as an executive, entrepreneur, and investor. Today, the United States is falling behind in our aspirations for energy and innovation leadership globally. Sustaining leadership across technology sectors important to the U.S. economy and national security requires constancy of purpose, effectively linking investment priorities with our strategic goals. It's essential to reassess our national priority of R&D investments together with the incentives needed to move markets, particularly in a global environment where U.S. technology innovation is challenged and U.S. influence is threatened abroad. Over the last few months, we've seen new federal investments in important areas such as AI, quantum, and critical minerals, including the Department of Energy's Mine of the Future initiative. However, we've also seen the termination of many energy-related projects already underway. This uncertainty has slowed momentum in workforce development, and for taxpayers, these cancellations limit the possibility of seeing returns on investment. Over many decades, the U.S. has been the undisputed global leader in innovation, but today, by many internationally recognized measures, China leads in 57 of 64 critical technology fields, including critical materials. China leads in the number of patents in highly cited research publications in respected journals, while also seeking to dominate global technology standards. Today, the U.S. is falling behind in key energy technology sectors. This has created openings for our global competitors to advance, to build their market momentum, and deliver their own messages. China's Xi has stated that China is the consistent partner for nations around the world, and that the world can move on without the United States. Energy leadership goes well beyond our own borders, with technology domains beyond fossil fuels, geothermal, nuclear, fusion, and critical materials. As we discover and rebuild U.S. domestic resources and processing capabilities, international partnerships will remain essential for resilient supply chains. America must reinvest in workforce for the future of energy, materials, and innovation leadership. Thanks also to this committee for your efforts to advance the Mining Schools Act. The U.S. has benefited enormously from developing new frontiers in energy, science, and technology. The U.S. had pioneered the full nuclear materials fuel cycle, and used fuel may once again be processed here. American leadership in solar, nuclear energy, and fuel cells have revolutionized space exploration, commerce, and security in space and on Earth. We're currently exploring geologic hydrogen production toward limitless, affordable energy. We're using AI and quantum computation for mining and metals, for grid optimization, to manage risk, and much more. The U.S. needs a coordinated national mineral and material strategy rooted in science, economics, and risk assessment. A recent study, as already mentioned from the Colorado School of Mines researchers, shows that the U.S. already has access to most of the minerals and materials we need in existing mining operations, and that byproduct recovery and mine waste reprocessing offer some of the fastest, lowest impact pathways to strengthening our domestic supply base. Recycling and reprocessing our byproducts will be essential parts of the strategy. America will need new mines, clearly, and we must develop these more effectively with improved permitting, deploying innovative technologies, environmental protections, and safety. Community engagement and support is essential, with good neighbor agreements serving as templates for success. This strategic framework must evaluate every mineral resource, including imports, new domestic mines, byproduct recovery, substitution, and recycling, and more. Our nation was built on innovation, energy, and mining. Today, these are essential to our economic and national security and our technological leadership. But the energy, mining, and process technologies of the future must be better than the past: economic, cleaner, safer, sustainable, data-driven, and grounded in community partnership. The U.S. needs this new national compact on natural resources, aligning innovation, workforce, environmental stewardship, and national security. Colorado School of Mines and I stand ready to support this committee and the nation in building that future. Thank you. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kopan. And now I go to Mr. Lugansky. It's your turn for 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Chairman Westerman, Chair Paul Gosar, Vice Chair Laura Borbert, and Ranking Member Maxine Dexter, and other members for the opportunity to present before the Natural Resources Oversight and Investigation Committee. It is imperative that we explore how the United States can unleash American energy dominance and secure its leadership in the global economy through mining. My name is Nicholas Lugansky, and I serve as head of mining at SLB, formerly known as Schlumberger. At SLB, a company that for 100 years has been at the forefront of oil and gas exploration and production, we see tremendous opportunities to accelerate U.S. mining capabilities by transferring and adopting proven oil and gas technologies to the mining sector. Today, we stand at the threshold of transformation as profound as Industrial Revolution, as the world is witnessing a paradigm shift, an era where oil and gas, the backbone of the 20th century, especially in the United States, are gradually being replaced by minerals essential for building an electrified and digital future. As global economy shifts towards a foundation built on mining and metals, an industry that supplies critical minerals to sustain our electrical grid, mobility, advanced technologies, and the defense industry. The question is how the United States can maintain its dominance, considering it is currently a net importer of most metals and minerals required for this transition. Before I answer this question, please consider this. The electrical grid transmission systems require large amounts of copper, aluminum, nickel, steel, plus lithium and rare earth elements for battery storage for more and more distributed grid. The electric vehicles and e-mobility rely on lithium, copper, cobalt, nickel, steel, aluminum, and minerals that go into advanced electronics. The advanced electronics need a huge number of rare earth elements such as lanthanum, cerium, neodymium, and europium for semiconductors, terbium and yttrium for TVs, our phones, and other LED application, gadolinium and lutetium for things like MRI. The US defense industry has a long list of critical minerals that is required to develop weapons that provide our national security and military supremacy. These range from well-known elements such as copper, titanium, and aluminum to rare earth elements such as promethium used in nuclear batteries, neodymium, dysprosium, and terbium for military electronics, and more importantly, magnets that are required in defense and aviation systems. Today, the world has several challenges. First of all, there are not enough of these minerals mined to meet the growing demand spurred by the world's electrification. To meet the projected demand, we need to open 293 mines in the world by 2030, Secondly, the minerals supply chain, particularly those related to lithium and rare earth elements, are largely dominated by China. So what do? We need to bring technologies that allow us to extract minerals faster, cheaper, and with smaller environmental footprint. We need to support domestic production and especially expedite permitting for domestic producers. We need to foster a competitive domestic and partner mining and metals market. Let me address this very quickly. Mining and adoption of new technologies for faster, cheaper, and more sustainable future. Mining is an extremely capital-intensive industry. Based on my personal experience, average copper mine requires $5 to $10 billion to build, 3-4 just for the production facilities. However, there are things that we can do better. At SLB, we led technological innovation for 100 years, and we believe that the lessons we learned can bring the capital-intensive solutions to this industry. Both industries have upstream, both industries have midstream, and both industries have downstream with similar challenges. What we can do is bring digitally assisted exploration, advanced surface imaging, advanced logging technologies, high-resolution micro-resistivity, real-time monitoring, and digital integration solutions. We also have advanced drilling and extraction techniques that allow us to drill, especially for aqueous minerals such as lithium, boron, bromine, and others. In situ mining is another solution that we can bring. All of these technologies are not speculative, they are real, and we can bring them. Finally, these technologies have measurable impact on social acceptance in mining. As representatives of your districts, you know firsthand that no one wants a mine in their backyard. However, by adopting technologies that foster resilience, inclusion, and environmental stewardship, we can develop mining resources in the US. Secondly, support domestic production and especially expedite permitting for domestic producers. Many been said, but I just want to remind that today, average mine, as Mr. Westerman said, takes up to 29, average is 15 to 20 around the world. We can reduce this by 3 to 5 times. And we need to foster domestic and partner mining and metals market. US industries grow the best if there is a healthy competition. We thus need to ensure that regulators provide equal access to water, land, and mineral resources to all players and take appropriate action if some actors try to monopolize these resources. In closing, I would like to thank the members of this committee for sharing ideas on how we can regain the leadership in mining through technological innovation and cross-industry collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Legansky. Now, I thank all the witnesses for your testimony. I'm going to go to the members, and the chairman of the full committee, Bruce Westerman, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Gosar, and again, thank you to the witnesses for your testimony today. You know, I go from great excitement to great distress when I think about mining in the U.S. I'm excited because as the nerd I am, I like to go to our national research laboratories and see the cool things that they're doing, and I see all the innovation out there. I know Colorado School of Mines and other mining schools around the country and engineering programs, they're graduating some really good people, not enough of them, but some really good people, some really innovative people. The technology advancements that we're having, I get really excited about what we can do, and I also get excited because I know as these gentlemen to my right talk, Mr. Begich is going to probably tell you that in the Ambler District in Alaska, there's 49 of, it used to be 49 out of 50. I think we've increased the critical minerals list, but 49 out of 50 at one point of the critical minerals on the critical minerals list were in sufficient quantities in the Ambler District, just in one region in the great state of Alaska. If Mr. Stauber doesn't talk about northern Minnesota and copper and platinum and palladium and nickel and the great deposits up there, then we got Utah and Arizona. All of them have great stories about how our country is blessed with abundance of minerals and how we all know how we need those. I don't think anybody disagrees that we need more minerals and elements, and they're critical to our economy and our national security. We've got all the potential in the world. We got the best innovators. I know one thing I saw, and Mr. Legansky, I think you were maybe referring to this, incorporating oil and gas technology into mining at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratories. They were doing a program where they drilled like a horizontal well into it was actually a copper and nickel deposit in Minnesota, injected high-pressure CO2 carrying a chemical solution that I'm about to get way out past my knowledge in this area, but it essentially dissolved the nickel. They could pump it back up to the surface, separate the nickel, and reuse this chemical solution. What you're talking about there is deep mining with no shaft, with no pit, no tailings, like a major advancement in being able to extract these minerals and elements that we need without doing all the digging that often goes with that. I was with Secretary Wright at Iowa State just this past summer, and in talking about recycling, they've developed, I think they call it tertiary extraction, where they have these chemicals that they grind up used computer equipment, and they're able to reclaim all of the different elements and minerals that were in this equipment. And I get so excited. Then I see that it takes us forever to implement this technology, and I get depressed. But we've got a solution for that. We've got the SPEED Act that I think will help us in many different areas to help us recycle more, help us mine more. I don't think anybody believes we can do all of this through recycling, and the testimony has been that we need to do more in mining. And I want to ask all of you one thing or maybe two things. What can we do to make the cycle shorter, to get these elements and minerals in the marketplace quicker? Because this also is going to create great paying jobs, and it'll help grow our economy. It'll even help with our federal debt if we can mine more of our materials. So your top issues, we'll start with you, Mr. Donahue.
Thank you. I'm also excited and scared on a pretty regular basis by our mining industry, and I agree we have incredible educational institutions graduating people. I would say increase and continue to fund surveying pre-competitive data sets. That is incredibly useful for companies like ours. I'd also say require the publication of drill cores after a confidentiality period in exploration. Australia does that. And so if someone drills for gold and they don't find gold, but they hit cobalt, in America, that might just sit in a company warehouse for a long time, and that company might go out of business. In Australia, after 5 or so years, very similar to our oil industry here in the US, you have to publish that. And so that I would love to see. It's all about data for us.
Thank you for the question. I think obviously mining how long it takes. I think what we're also forgetting is that there's enough material out there sitting in what people call tailings, mining tailings, waste across several decades of use and reuse and mine materials in this country. It's time for all of us to focus on how we can recover enough valuable materials from those resources. I don't think enough attention is being paid to that. So if I were to request one area to look at, it would be how quickly can we standardize understanding what is sitting in these materials and how quickly we can bring them to market, because we have the technology to process them. It's just that a lot of people are not spending time characterizing what's in these tailings that are sitting around, including coal tailings. I mean, there's a lot of rare earths sitting in several of these materials. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And I believe that doubling down as a nation on investment in fundamental research and development will drive the future of our workforce. And thanks for the support on the Mining Schools Act. I believe that that's an important step as we look at the people who will actually be in this industry in the future, and having them excited about the potential to make this a better world, and to do that very, very intelligently. So research and workforce.
Thank you for the question. As a company that has long heritage of research and development, we believe that a lot of the technologies we have need to be now tested and applied. You mentioned in situ mining just in your questions. And in situ mining requires certain collaboration with potentially national labs or universities where we can, and companies that have the resource where we can install these 2 wells and start pumping the leaching agents so that we can extract nickel, copper, or any other metals. And I believe that we already seen collaboration between the private industry and the public laboratories and universities, but some of it requires also external funding, as just using our own private funds for this is not sufficient.
Great questions from the chairman. Appreciate it. The gentleman from Utah, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Owens.
Appreciate it. And thank you to witnesses for being here today. Utah knows the strength of American mining, from the University of Utah's mining engineering program to Kennecott and operated statewide. We build from the ground up for generation. But America cannot lead in mining or advanced materials unless we rebuild the workforce needed to sustain it. That's why I introduced the Bipartisan Mining Schools Act, which passed out of this committee by voice vote last December. This bill is practical, focused solution to rebuild the talent pipeline needed for American mining, American technology, and American innovation. Congress can enact every permitting reform, critical minerals bill on the docket, but without the workforce to execute them, they won't be restoring our leadership in mining. This bill is more than education. It's truly national security. It creates a pipeline for engineers, geologists, technologists, skilled traders who keep the industry moving. Meanwhile, China is producing mining professionals at a scale we're not matching. And our own trades face a sharp retirement cliff. If America wants to win, the work must begin in America. And that starts with mining workforce strong enough to secure our supply chains and to power the next generation of innovation. I look forward to working with the Chairman Westerman and all the members of this committee to advance this bill into law. With that, I'd like to turn it to questions. Dr. Copen, thank you for joining us today, first of all, and representing the Colorado Schools of Mines, America's most prestigious mining school. Why is a traditional mining background important for modern mining technology?
Thank you so much for the question. It's a really wonderful time as we look at the actual growth that we have in the mining engineering program at Colorado School of Mines. We have been exposing students even early on in their educational career, beginning in high schools and in community colleges, to what the future of the mining sector means for our nation and the opportunity for them to participate in a revitalized future, one that delivers the kind of sustainable results that are so important for America and all of our communities and for our national security. So taking a holistic approach, one that's research-driven, one that's looking to drive innovation, and we've heard from the other witnesses today about some of the applications of technologies, including advanced sensing, AI, in situ mining, and so on. But at the end of the day, it requires the people who bring the heart for the future of the industry and the heart for our nation to be inspired for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Donahue, how does a company like yours rely on the pipeline of talent coming from mining schools like the Colorado School of Mines?
Yeah, so I think a lot of us have heard about how AI is going to take our jobs. A geologist is not one that I think AI can take. I'm here to say that. But seriously, like we need good geologists who do field work and understand these deposits to train our models. We don't have an internet-sized database of geology out there that we can train on like an LLM. So we have to have a really good geologist who, literally lives inside these deposits. They're in his head, all of that, to come in and say, we need, the faults to be at this angle. So every model that you generate has to have within this angle of faults, and there was hydrothermal activity that came through here, so on and so forth. So we heavily rely on this pipeline. The interaction between AI and geologists is the core of what we do.
You might have already answered that, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you have any examples of this currently happening with Terra AI?
Yeah, every day. the very first step of our process is we will send an AI engineer and one of our geos to meet with a partner geo and write down the rules our AI should follow. Typically, these geologists are relying on the field work of young geologists who go out, or really truly you have to be young to do this, go out into the field and get to know this deposit.
Okay, well, thank you so much for what you guys bring to the plate. I'm excited about the reinvestment in America we're going through and the remarkable explosion of this industry. So thank you so much. I'll yield back.
I thank the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Owens, and I'm recognizing the gentleman from Alaska, Mr. Begich.
Well, I think the chairman stole some of my thunder. 49 of the 50 critical minerals, the critical minerals list is growing, are present in Alaska in economic quantities, something that we're proud of and excited about. Particularly in this emergent regulatory environment where things are becoming possible in the United States again, and there is a broad recognition among the public and growing recognition among the public that the United States needs a domestic supply for critical minerals. I think that is something that many folks on both sides of the aisle recognize as important. Of course, we want to do that responsibly. I'd like to say that in Alaska we have one of the most responsible track records you'll find anywhere in the world when it comes to resource development. But when we talk about building that inventory, building that knowledge base, and I'm going to direct this question to you, Mr. Donahue, do you think that there's a need for the United States government to invest in building knowledge sets and data sets around our national resource inventory as it comes to critical minerals?
Thank you for the question. That's a really good question. You've heard in the age of AI, data is the new oil. It's really true. We have phenomenal data out there, and programs like Earth MRI, collecting new geophysics, new surveys all the time, are great programs. We'd like to see those expanded and continue to be funded. One of the challenges that companies like ours will run into, we work in many countries across the world, is that this sort of post-collection knowledge basing and databasing and all of that can sometimes really slow us down. So, getting everything into the same format, making sure everything is digitized, it's in one place. We have a federal system, we have state geologic surveys, we have a federal geologic survey. So really, truly, not just collecting, but organizing.
Thank you. Next question to Dr. Copan. Is there a know-how gap between what China knows and their operating norms with respect to mineral processing and what we know how to do in the United States?
It's another great question, and thank you for the opportunity. With every company, with every technology strategy that's being deployed, there is embedded know-how. And corporations globally trade successfully based on what they learn in the field by practicing process technologies. There are new tricks that are identified, and so for myself, the idea of investing in research and development and technology and the survey technologies that we're just talking about, the important work of the U.S. Geological Survey and Earth MRI, absolutely essential to the nation to have that combination of data sets, but then also practically informed research that builds American know-how that competes on a global scale.
Thank you. And next question, Mr. Lugansky. You mentioned in your testimony that in your written testimony that the mining cost, the CapEx for a new copper mine might reach up to $10 billion, and obviously a huge capital outlay. We know through your spoken testimony that SLB has pathways to reduce that by 3 to 5x. Can you speak to some of the ways in which we go about doing that? How do we so dramatically lower the capital requirements for some of these large, important mines?
Thank you very much for this excellent question. I think there are two things. First of all, we're always looking at traditional mining today, and we're looking primarily at large open pit or complex underground mines that require complex tunneling. Today, we have technologies such as in situ mining based on advanced well construction, microfracturing, electromagnetics, and leaching chemistries that can rapidly reduce that initial capital cost. It also allows you to extend the life of current facilities and produce more, let's say, copper out of the same mine. We have a lot of aging mines. Example, somebody mentioned Kennecott in their answers. These mines can, by using the in-situ type solutions, extend it by another 10, 15 years. And that is immediately reduces amount of capital outlay that the mining companies need to put in place.
Thank you. And a final question for Mr. Kunduru. You mentioned co-location at mine sites and remote installations. Could your technology be viable for deployment in Alaska's interior or near existing legacy mines in remote locations like Alaska for both remediation and value recovery?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, quick answer is absolutely yes. So the technology that we are building is very modular. It sits on very easy to build skidded systems and transportable. We could also use the local infrastructure in Alaska to build these things fast. And it can withstand any of the harsh conditions that, that the situation may actually bring to the table. So I'll keep it short. Yes, we would love to do something in Alaska.
Thank you. And I see my time has expired, and I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Stauber, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Gosar. It's great to be with y'all. Thanks for your testimony. I couldn't wait to be here today because the witnesses, the mining space, you're professionals, you own it, and I love it. And just a couple things, Dr. Kunduru. One of the things that you had mentioned is you use the term waste rock. And so for the last while, I've not used that term because, as you know, the technology gets better and better. That waste rock in the iron ore on the Iron Range in the 60s is now valuable right now. The tailings at Eagle Mine in Ishpeming, Michigan now is being recycled. They're getting more nickel and copper out of it. And you all understand that. So just a personal favor, let's use tailings because that waste rock is going to, as our children, the technologies, they're going to be mining minerals and ore out of that too. So I just would appreciate that. And a couple of things that you had, Mr. Lugansky, you had said some of the technology can extend the life of the mine several years. I'm just trying to get our mines open in Minnesota. As you know, the New Range and Twin Metals, right? The biggest copper nickel find in the world. We just want to get them opened, right? And using the technology that you all see, and Dr. Copeland, the technology that you're teaching your students that are going to be the engineers mining that in the future, we need to stay competitive, and we need more than 14 mining schools in this country. We have to just push for them, and it's going to be up to all of us pushing in the right direction because we want to be we want to decouple ourselves from purchasing minerals and rare earths from countries that are adversarial to us and what we believe in. So thank you all for being here. Mr. Now that I've got that out of the way, the waste rock that was bothering me, it's tailings from here on out. So how as far as reprocessing the previous tailings, the permitting barriers are a bit lower in your operation. Is that correct? And explain that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's correct. So typically the way we look at permitting is permitting that's needed for the on-site operation, permitting that is required to bring materials to that site. So by co-locating to an existing site, you're eliminating the complexity of transporting feedstock from a different part of the world and different part of the country. So that eliminates that a need to permit to deal with that. So when it comes to on-site, what I meant by processing, allowing faster permitting, is that you build small modular plants first. So the capacity for those plants to produce waste is quite low. And so if you can segment these permitting guidelines to permit a smaller capacity plant first. Then you can start operating it, and then you can incrementally add more capacity as you need. So the burden of having...
Do you have to get the okay when you want to increase the capacity? And how long does that take? Is it just a letter to the DNR or the EPA say, boom? How does that work? Or
Yeah.
is it delayed?
Yeah, good question. We're not sure if there is existing language in there to...
I think it'll be like the glacial speed of Congress, quite frankly, when you do that.
That's probably right. So I think what we then do is we say, hey, the emitting capacity for a plant of this size is this much. Let us operate that. And then as the feedstock capacity increases, we'll incrementally add more requirements to that. And so far we've been dealing with 2 states that have been amenable to that. So maybe one of the suggestions here is to maybe the DOI or the agencies that are responsible for permitting can think of this as more incremental permitting rather than taking 2 years to permit something. Let's get something going first, knowing fully well that the rest will come.
Yeah, no. When we talk mining, 5 minutes just isn't enough. I will ask you a trivia question. Where is the highest percentage of nickel in a core sample in the United States ever? Where was it? I'll give you a hint. It's in Minnesota. Tamarack, Minnesota. The Talon metals, the core sample was 28% nickel, the highest in the world, and it's going into the Smithsonian. So I want to really thank you all for your professionalism. This is exciting. You're going to be on the front end of some great things, and we're going to increase our mining schools and mining. We're going to be critical mineral dominant with your help, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. The gentleman from Puerto Rico, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here today. AI has enormous potential to accelerate our clean energy transition and to reduce the environmental footprint of industries that are critical to that transition. We often talk about AI in terms of risk, but it is also a tool that can improve how we mine, process, and deploy the materials needed for a decarbonized future. If AI can help us mine more sustainably, then faster AI development could support cleaner mining, and cleaner mining could make the next generation of AI models more sustainable. In the long term, that creates a kind of sustainability return on investment, the idea that $1 or one action invested today in clean innovation may yield $10 of environmental benefit in a decade. Or, if we expend 1 gigawatt of energy in AI today, we could save 10 in the future with more productive AI. Mr. Donahue, can you speak to how AI is already being used to make critical mineral mining cleaner and more efficient, and whether accelerated AI development can actually reduce the carbon and environmental footprint of these supply chains?
Yes, well, I'll speak as to our AI and kind of our segment of the industry. So for exploration, fewer drill holes, just fewer impactful exploration. We can get it done faster, which is also a lower permitting burden. I'd also say that you can make things like geophysics more front and center. Traditional methods use geophysics, but not as heavily as AI can, because AI can infer things from geophysics that traditional methods can't. And allowing that to occur, that's just a plane ride over. So that's less impactful, I would say.
One thing that I'm hearing a lot of recently is to reduce permitting burdens to enable faster AI development. But I'm also curious, doesn't AI make compliance easier? Like if we have a generative AI model for permitting and we just upload all the documents, we don't have to wait 6 months for someone to come and tell us the margins are too small in this page. Wouldn't that be a justification to even at least keep the current regulations that we have in terms of environmental protections?
I can't comment as to the use of LLMs. We're not in the business of LLMs that read documents.
Okay, well, that sounds like a very safe response, but I think in general, would you agree that generative AI has that sort of potential to process large amounts of data very quickly?
Correct. Yes,
Okay,
I do.
Thank you. So I represent Puerto Rico, which has a significant energy challenge. And I'm obviously interested in how AI can help us optimize our energy usage, design and operate cleaner distributed energy systems, rooftop solar, microgrids, battery storage. I guess the same question would be for you. How could AI, or to anyone who volunteers, how could AI support better grid management, reduce energy waste, and improve efficiency in regions with fragile infrastructure such as Puerto Rico?
Thank you so much for the question. It's an exciting era as we look at grid optimization strategies and the role that artificial intelligence and indeed quantum-based simulation, quantum devices are being applied. And so as we look at optimizing variable renewables on the grid and utilizing our resources as efficiently as we can, AI is definitely a part of that optimization pathway.
Right. And we need all available energy sources, because I too often hear the majority talk about as if the only remaining energy sources to be tapped into are oil, coal, and gas. But we need all the energy we can get. And when we say that, we mean adding wind, solar, and other forms of renewable, correct?
Indeed, energy is a very broad field, and one of the topics you hadn't mentioned also was nuclear, and the importance of nuclear and the opportunity that fusion represents for a sustainable energy future.
Right. Well, thank you. I'm almost out of time. I just want to state it's important as we engage with AI that we also think in terms of sustainability ROI. What I said earlier, that what might cost a lot of energy today could result in a lot of energy savings in the future, and that we should make that part of our sustainability and AI deployment agenda. Thank you, and with that, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for his insights. The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for letting me wave on to this hearing. Thank you for the guests for showing up today. Obviously, we're here to talk about unleashing American energy dominance and exploring new frontiers, AI and mining. I just want to give you guys a brief opportunity to tell Americans why this shouldn't be a partisan issue, Republican or Democrat. What do we get out of mining? Go ahead, I'll start with you, Mr. Donahue.
What do we get out of mining, or AI and mining?
Yeah, what comes from mining?
I mean, every age of man has been defined by our ability to get metal out of the ground, the rate at which we get it, and what we can get. The economy of the future is very metal intensive. Whether we want EVs, data centers, or any other source of energy, we need a lot more metal. And right now our base supply is owned by rivals, so we get sovereignty out of mining.
Anybody else want to add any consumer items or anything to that list?
Yes, thank you again for that question. I think what I'll add is that critical minerals and metals coming from mining and other sources power most of the technologies that define American energy dominance. So we already talked about AI data centers, energy storage systems, motors, magnets. Essentially, not only are these materials transporting energy, but they are the energy that drive energy. So I think needless to say, as my I guess guests next to me have already said, a lot of the dominance that America seeks in energy is going to be driven by these critical minerals.
Thank you.
There's no question about that.
Thank you. Mr. Condura, Momentum Technologies utilizes the recycling of critical minerals and metals. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you briefly, in layman's terms, explain how recycling critical minerals using membrane solvent extraction technology, MSX, would help states like Arizona and others reduce our reliance on China's rare earth minerals?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yes, happy to do so. The core technology that Momentum is deploying is essentially taking conventional, bulky, not safe, expensive mixer settler tanks type structures, if you can have visions of that, putting into a very elegant closed loop system that is very small in footprint from an energy perspective, waste generation perspective, and that translates into quick return on investment. And we can deploy these at small scale in Arizona and other states to immediately seek a return on investment. And as mentioned earlier, permitting is faster. It's very sustainable from an environmental perspective. So we will go to wherever the source of material is, whether it's waste material, including tailings, or mined material from primary sources, and deploy these fast and give you critical minerals even faster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many of your companies advocate for public-private partnerships to address the shortage of critical minerals. I agree with this concept. One issue top of mind for my constituents is the existence of abandoned uranium mines left behind by public-private mines after the development of the Manhattan Project. I sat down yesterday with a company called DISA Technology, who has new remediation technologies that claim will speed up uranium mine cleanup and reduce the cost of cleanup efforts. In fact, the Navajo Nation and the Navajo EPA in my district have contracted to clean up 500 abandoned uranium mines, and they hope to expand. How could your companies be integrated into these type of process to make sure that remediation is streamlined, cost-effective, and safe?
So mining remediation is complex. What we focus on at Terra AI is improving our geologic knowledge and optimizing decisions. So we've been involved with late-stage mining projects that are producing. We haven't been involved in any remediation efforts to date, but some of the things we've done is look at tailings. We've looked at tailings in the past and understanding how they move and all the different ways that they could fail or flow, things like that. But so far, we haven't looked at any of that to date.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, since I only have 18 seconds left, I've introduced H.R. 3713, Legacy Mine Cleanup Act of 2025. This bipartisan bill strengthens efforts to clean up abandoned hard rock mines across the U.S. It would establish a permanent Office of Mountains, Desert, and Plains within the EPA to coordinate cleanup, improve oversight, and involve state and tribal governments in reclamation projects. I'd also like to highlight that the Senate passed this bill by unanimous consent on November 19th of 2025. Mr. Chair, I'd appreciate anything you could do to advance this vital piece of legislation so that we can get that to markup on the floor.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank the gentleman from Arizona. Gentleman from Montana, Mr. Dowling, is recognized for his.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for holding this hearing and for allowing me to wave onto it, exploring the United States critical mineral industry. And thank you to the witnesses for being here. Critical minerals like copper, lithium, cobalt, dozens of others have become integral in our modern way of life. These minerals are used in virtually all high-tech applications and industries, including data centers, smartphones, transmission systems, and advanced weapons defense systems. And as our reliance on new technologies and industries grows, as does our dependence on critical minerals and rare earth elements. So this is all tied together. And so jumping right into here, America lags behind our foreign counterparts in producing and processing critical minerals and rare earth elements, leaving us reliant on countries such as China, Russia, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Kunduru. In your remarks, you speak to the capital requirements necessary to build out our processing capabilities. Huge concern of mine. Can you elaborate more on what is necessary to increase the United States critical mineral processing capabilities?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I think we've talked a lot today about how China dominates processing, and the way the Chinese have built their processing capability is they've had this, they've got three things. One is state support, low cost, and speed. So they started building plants at small scale, rather than spending 2-3 years on design of a plant and building a large plant. Build small plants, run them, learn, and then builds the next biggest plant. Right. And obviously, it's gone on for multiple decades, and we've done that. I think what we can do here in the United States is to do something similar, but do it a little bit more faster, where if you can start building a plant, but that needs very low time for permitting, building, operating, and running it, and then quickly doing the feedback loop to grow to the next scale.
Yeah.
I think that would really enhance the way.
Yeah, I think that's a huge issue. I mean, we pull a lot of stuff out of the ground in Montana, but the ability to actually process it is an issue, and restrictions on rapidly permitting and getting things to market, huge issue that I'm very concerned about. Can you describe how controlling this entire critical mineral life cycle would be advantageous, from an economic and strategic perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the challenge is that this country is already geologically gifted, that there's enough critical minerals available here. The challenge over the last few decades has been that while we could mine and pre-treat them, they had to go overseas to process them.
Right.
And when times in the world become challenging, that processing lack of capability can be weaponized against the U.S. So a quick answer is having the mine to finished product supply chain fully integrated in this country lets you control all aspects of it without being vulnerable to foreign sources that are not friendly to us.
Important. I appreciate those comments. And Montana, my home state, is home to the Sibanye-Stillwater mine. And this is the United States' only platinum and palladium mine. And due to Russian market manipulations, the mine was forced to scale back its operations and lay off over 700 workers end of last year. Incredibly meaningful to Stillwater County, Yellowstone County, and my district. And not just the national issues, but the local economic issues. I'm going to move on to Mr. Lugansky. Your comments include concerns surrounding commodity pricing uncertainty. What steps do you think Congress can take to combat similar efforts by international entities to dominate commodity markets and crush American competition?
Well, thank you very much for your question. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, there are certain price adjustments that government can take to create minimum pricing in case of these type of dumping techniques that unfriendly actors take in the mining sector. We've seen it now with lithium, nickel, and as you mentioned, with palladium and
Do you see any overlap between improvements made in the oil and gas industry and the potential for technological advances in the mining industry?
Indeed. As I said, first of all, one of the biggest inefficiencies in mining is that we do not understand geology very well. And when we start for mining, we create actually more waste than we expected. By bringing the advanced techniques in understanding the geology, you can dramatically reduce the cost of producing these metals and thus bring them to the market at the cheapest price.
Great. Well, I really appreciate all of you. Sorry I didn't get to all of my questions because I've run out of time, but thank you for participating. And Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing me to wave on, and on that I yield.
You're certainly welcome. Well, now you're going to have some fun because there's only two of us left. So the ranking member, Mrs. Dexter, is recognized for 5 minutes. And
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for coming. It is exciting to have the folks who are doing this innovation here with us, so really great opportunity. Dr. Copan, in your testimony, you emphasized that innovation is the determining factor in whether the United States actually secures its mineral supply chains. You also point out that technological leadership depends on consistent policy signals, not boom and bust cycles. Right now, the federal government is sending very mixed signals. On one hand, we are told that we have an urgent mineral and energy shortage driven by AI and electrification, and on the other hand, major solar, wind, and distributed energy projects are being canceled, denied, or stalled. What does the kind of policy whiplash that we are experiencing right now due to private investment, workforce development, and the long-term competitiveness of U.S. energy and mining technology? Dr. Coban.
Thank you so much for that question. It is a challenging environment for corporate decision-making as we look at the need for companies to drive a return on their investment. And certainly in the academic sector as well, there have been changes that have in some cases made it very difficult for faculty, for students, for recruitment. And so as we are at this particular point, we have an opportunity. We're seeing now investments that are coming through the Department of Energy that are very, very positive, looking at the mine of the future and some of the recent calls for proposals. This is a very encouraging time. Future investments also in quantum and artificial intelligence. As we've been speaking today, these are drivers of innovation that ultimately underpin U.S. competitiveness. But it's a time where we need to maintain that constancy of purpose to which I referred.
That resonates with our investigations in the medical sector as well, so certainly understood. Your testimony also makes clear that technology allows us to recover more minerals with less land disturbance through byproduct recovery, advanced processing, and remining of existing waste streams, and many of you have talked about this. Yet much of the current policy discussion here in the halls of Congress has been treating new mining as the only option to really consider. So my next question is, what do you think we need to do to unlock byproduct recovery at scale? And how does byproduct recovery and mine waste reprocessing compare to greenfield mining in terms of speed and environmental impact?
Thank you so much. And you've heard, I believe, from all the witnesses
Yeah.
about the opportunities that these unconventional resources represent for the future of the mining sector. It's important nationally to have a framework to look at the action. Ultimately, we need to be measuring all of our minerals that are present in mined ore. As we've been speaking, a lot of our mining operations are looking for one end product, like looking for copper or looking for platinum and palladium. But so many of these other streams are co-products. It will require a rethinking around the total mining of the future so that we can be as efficient as possible. It's going to be very important for us as a nation to invest in cost-effective recovery technologies. The U.S. Geological Survey is doing work along the lines of waste reprocessing and surveys. The Department of Energy's Mine of the Future initiative, the Critical Materials Innovation Hub. These are all very important underpinnings for the innovations that are going to drive a much more sustainable future and greater resource utilization. And lastly, looking at the future of the policies that address the economic realities of the situation. Incentives, pilot scale investment demonstration projects to provide the highest impact ways of strengthening our domestic supply together with market assurance.
Thank you, and I know my time is coming short, but I thank you for your generosity, Mr. Chair. I'm going to keep going then. On that note, or in the light of the need for these investments and these investments that are sustained as well as truly supporting private sector, these public-private partnerships, my concern oftentimes is that environmental protection is not necessarily front and center in that. And I know certainly in the academic institutions that is likely to be more of a focus. I wonder what you think the balancing act is that we can help with here in Congress to make sure that we are incentivizing environmental protection and innovation, recognizing that private sector, if you're investing, needs to get a return on that investment, but also how do we minimize the long-term impacts, which we know mining has a very tragic legacy of harm to the environment.
Thank you. We are at a time as we're looking at the future of workforce, training our workforce to be cognizant of these issues and designing processes, designing projects that take into account total resource utilization and environmental matters. One of the greatest funders of mining education in this country was the National Institutes of Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH, which is part of the Department of Health and Human Services. They're a big part of the mining system, but yet their funding has gone away. And NIOSH's role was really also to include all those occupational health and safety and water utilization, waste minimization strategies, and human health implications. So I think that as we look to the future, our investment in fundamental science and technology, our focus on the future of engagement between the public and the private sector and communities to have a voice in the future of their projects. We talked briefly about the Stillwater Mine Project and the existence there of the Good Neighbor Agreement that is so important. And clearly we heard tragically about the market manipulation that's influenced the Stillwater operation. So as we consider these holistically for the future, having a strategic focus, looking at the big picture, and as has been mentioned earlier on, to have mining once again embraced by the American people, together with the need for resource recovery as an essential part of our strategy, must be where we go.
No, I thank you for that, and I do see this as a real opportunity for bipartisan collaboration. I trained at the University of Colorado and did my major presentation on occupational lung diseases, and mining, of course, was very relevant in that area. So the impacts on health are things that we don't acknowledge enough, so I really appreciate the call out for NIOSH there. Mr. Chair, I have other questions, but I'd like to defer. You're really okay with me continuing?
I like this.
Okay.
The dialogue is great. They're prepared for my question.
Okay. Great. So I did want to bring up the Good Neighbor Agreements and just how do we make sure that those are incorporated, and I welcome other input on this. If my impression is that they can be a win-win for the community and the private sector, mitigating litigation and other things later on. Dr. Copan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and then if others wanted to share their thoughts, that'd be great.
Thanks so much for that question. And as I indicated in my testimony, that is an important model for the United States to look at how communities and how mining operations coexist positively. It requires, number one, coming together around a shared framework and the recognition that we're in this together. And so having the communities come together with a binding agreement, ultimately a legal framework with the corporate partners, and to see this as a long-term partnership, that it's open, it's transparent, it's data-driven, and that communities and companies can work together effectively to accomplish sometimes the resolution of very thorny issues. But for the mining sector to succeed in the United States, once again, and for all these great opportunities that we're talking about today, the opportunity for reprocessing and recycling and co-product development, this concept of total mining, rather than seeing, as was called out earlier, this is not waste rock, this is input to another process. This is something that we can utilize to benefit the economy. But the economic reality there is sometimes these co-products are not valuable enough for industry to go after. And so it's going to be important as part of these good neighbor agreements also to recognize that there's sometimes trade-offs that need to be taken between the public sector's interests and the corporate interests, and to find that common ground once again.
Great. Mr. Luganski, it sounds like.
Yeah, if I may add.
Please.
In mining, water is probably one of the most important both resources as well as tools for extractions. And I think one of the things that new technologies can allow, and we at SLV brought this, instead of today, average open pit mine has 40 to 60 water wells that you need to monitor, you pump, and you try to not to contaminate them with your explosive material or other things. Today, we can do 1 to 2 wells horizontal underneath the entire formation, extract that water, treat it through a centralized water treatment facility, which ensures high quality outcome of that water, and then reuse that water either for industrial application or return that water for other usage. And I think these type of technologies that combine innovation and environmental stewardship is what we are trying to bring to the table.
No, I really appreciate that. I wanted to offer the opportunity if others have thoughts about these good neighbor agreements in particular. Yeah.
I'll just add that we spend a lot of time with large mining companies looking at historic deposits or assets in care and maintenance, and these mines were closed under very different economic conditions. They were mined and explored and characterized using sometimes old methods of understanding the subsurface. I mean, literally continental drift is a recent thing. But we're looking at these old assets, and I think some of the great ways I've seen assets in the U.S. succeed is by saying this is an historic asset, we're going to reopen it, and that's going to finance the cleanup of it. And so, this is something that is top of mind for a lot of the industry.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. We are big supporters of that because what we've seen is that our technology empowers local communities to do a couple of things. One, keep valuable materials locally and not transport hazardous chemicals across communities. And what we've seen is when we got into these communities to raise support, every local community wants the community to be safe for their children. Yeah. So they're very supportive, and if we can do it in a safe, sustainable manner, at the same time keep the valuable materials in their community, it's a win-win for everybody, so we're big supporters of that.
I appreciate that, and I also think the private sector drives a lot of the investment, and it would really be helpful for the private sector to also be elevating the need for not just environmentally sustainable, but also health-wise impact sustainable mining practices. And so I look forward to working with my colleagues here because I do think that the unintended impacts on health and the environment have led to distrust in many parts of our country. And I think if we really do see this as the technology and innovation we need to be dominant economically in the future, it feels like the right time to learn from our past mistakes. And so really appreciate all of your input today, and I yield back to the chair. Thank you.
I thank the gentlelady. Mr. Donahue, you work with SLB as one of the only spheres in which big tech operates alongside geologists. You said it in your opening statement. Well, big tech can get a bad connotation, and for good reasons. Can you tell us about the safeguards that you have implemented to ensure that your AI technology is used responsibly and effectively amid these big tech concerns?
It's a great question. I'd like to, in this moment, give a shout out to one of our founders. Anthony Corso was the executive director at AI Safety at Stanford. Safety is core to what we're doing. You can't be wrong very often in mining. You can't predict something that's not realistic. So some of the safeguards we have in place to ensure that our models are safe, and in this case, realistic, like they're actually producing geologies that make sense, are we continuously filter them. We're continuously improving them and ensuring that the predictions we are making are actually matching the geophysics that we observe in the real deposit out in the real world. We're producing thousands of these models, and so we have to continuously measure them and match them and ensure that we're not predicting something, out of left field, as you could say.
Oh, way cool.
I'd add one more. We also, when we do drill planning, always ensure that our AI has keep out zones around areas where you are not supposed to be drilling. So we have, we want to optimize a drill campaign. Let's not have our AI recommend a drill target in the middle of a town or a road, for instance. So that's another way.
Well, another question with data centers. We have Western Phoenix, and it seems like every weekend we have a new data center up and running. Do you use copper, silver, gold, and antimony for these centers?
Yes, we do. We use quite a few minerals. We use gold, silver, palladium, copper, rare earths, barium, gallium, indium, niobium, antimony, tantalum, titanium, tungsten. Many of these, the requirements for one of the data centers that companies like OpenAI and Anthropic are trying to build, whose compute we are sometimes using. We're using these data centers for compute. The requirements from the metal side are in some cases the annual output of a smaller, medium-sized mine. This is significant metal demand. And many of these metals, such as gallium, indium, niobium, antimony, tantalum, and tungsten, we don't produce much of or any of in the United States. So this relationship between AI data center demand and mining is only being characterized now. and it's hard to predict how big AI is going to be, but we know that we're going to need a lot more mining to supply it.
So continuing along those same lines, to bolster supply chains, chain reliance, do you agree that the U.S. should mine uranium domestically instead of relying on adversaries like China and Russia?
Absolutely.
And the symbiotic relationship between the big nuclear facilities and the small modulars are compatible?
Sorry, could you repeat the question,
Yeah,
sir?
so big nuclear facilities with these small modular nuclears, they feed off each other.
Correct. I mean, small modular reactors are an amazing innovation coming out of America right now.
Well, luckily in Arizona, we got both of those coming our way. Mr. Lugansky, SLB is a leader in the new mining technology to supply electric grid, and you know well electric transmission requires copper and rare earths. Now, why has China been so successful in that mining processes? Is it money? Is it just that they have they have a bigger hold on it than we do, and they can take and extort different companies? Give some more background.
Thank you for the question. Look, as I mentioned, when somebody is investing $5 to $10 billion into a mine, they want to make sure that the outcomes are certain. And I think this is the conservatism in the mining industry has been as an adoption of new technologies because of some uncertainties of outcome with some of the new technologies. And this is where we were trying to overcome this as an example in the lithium space, where we have developed an integrated well-to-product solution for lithium extraction using direct lithium technologies as well as other adjacent technologies to produce an efficient, economic, and sustainable process. This process we tested, and we achieved not only high yield of recovery, 95% with 99% of rejection of impurities, but also extremely high sustainability index. We used only 5% of chemicals compared to the traditional methods. We were reinjecting 95% of the water, while this water would be normally used in the traditional methods. And we worked very closely with the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection to send 112 water samples to them for validation before any action to reinject took place. So all of this says that in order for us to bring these new technologies to the market, we need to use innovation, but we also need to bring certainty to these investors.
Now, you brought up an interesting point here about water. So I want to go to water. So some mining aspects, you can actually clean water, right? Can you give me a little dictation on that, how that works?
So in mining, as in any extraction, you, first of all, as you're going through the geological formation, you will go through aquifers. And so you need to make sure that you protect those aquifers from either getting inside your mine or inside your well, et cetera. So you need to bring all the expertise, and in this case, SLB has with produced water, basically how to pump that water out, test that water, make sure that you're not changing the composition of that water as it re-injected in the same aquifer, and create a circulation systems. We do that in oil and gas, and we do that in mining. And I think this is when I speak about the cross-industry collaboration, is how can we bring that expertise to mining. In oil and gas, sometimes we treat 9 gallons of water for each gallon of oil, which means that we're basically a mega water treatment facility in the production of oil. Same thing happens in mining and metals production. So that is where we want to bring that water expertise to the forefront of the solutions.
Interesting. So now in my district, or my old district, we have an in situ copper collection in Florence, Arizona. And it's worked really, really well. So I mean, but they were very, very careful in that aspect. So pretty interesting. Now you use a lot of water with, if I'm not mistaken, with your lithium, right? Concentrations?
In case of our lithium solution, as I said, we actually return 95% of the water back to the original source. So we process huge amounts, in our demonstration plant, which is about 1 20th of what the industrial facility will be, we processed 100 gallons per minute of water. But then, as I said, 95 gallons of it per minute went back. And in situ mining, one of the things that you're mentioning is the protection of the water resource. And that is, again, where we are using different techniques from our understanding of geological formation to make sure that that leaching agent that you're inserting into the ground is not leaked outside of the channels that you have created. And we're currently funding internal program to look at all kinds of protection technologies that can be used in situ leaching, and working closely with the mining community with very big copper production companies, where we can test it first on the ground in their leaching pads, but then also get permit and test it in the actual production.
Doctor, would you agree with that? I'm talking to you, doctors. Go, Pat. Would you agree with his assessment?
So I think it's an exciting opportunity as we look at in situ mining and how water conservation and water purification technologies can come together. A lot of this, as mentioned, comes down to the degree of understanding of the subsurface and the controls systems that are in place. And so validating that with the data is absolutely essential. We're excited about the potential that in situ mining represents, and it's one of the innovative approaches that we are pursuing together with corporate partners as well as a university, as we're looking at the combination of how we educate the next generation of people involved in the mining and processing sectors, and also bringing together all of the understanding of the geosciences, our close partnership with the U.S. Geological Survey, and environmental protection.
Well, you know, I've been to mines over and over again, and I can tell you, you know, one of the things I look at is the opportunity maybe to make these big smelters are roadways, where you're actually utilizing the roadway to collect the copper residue. So pretty interesting what's really occurring. I think there's great areas, like I have Buckeye, Arizona in my district. Why is that important? It's got one of the largest aquifers, or big lakes, called the Husquehala there. It can't be used because of heavy metals and arsenic and lots of those aspects. So looking at how you purify that by using a technique would be very fabulous to me to look at that. As you can tell, I got more questions I'm going to ask. Mr. Condura, you touched on processing in your testimony. Refining and processing are the key components we must shift to the domestic theater, which also means more American jobs. Do you know how many copper smelters there are in the U.S.?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. I do not.
There's really 2 operational, but there's really 3. Do you know how many China has?
I do not.
202. These are great paying jobs. And with these advanced reclamation systems, they're closed loop. And we should be able to push this through so that we can actually have some dominance in this area. But these are good paying jobs. And now that they're closed loop and they're getting smaller and better at this, where they're getting everything off using electrolysis and surfactants, it's amazing that we ought to be doing this more often. Okay. Can you briefly tell me a little bit more about these rare earths? I believe they're all, if they're heavy or light, they're all radioactive.
Thank you for the question. My understanding is not all of them are radioactive. Some of them are, depending on where you mine them from, but there are a substantive portion of them that are radioactive.
Okay, so if technology came about, and this is, I agree with everybody, technology is going to be our way out of this. If there was a material that actually could absorb certain materials and then squeegee it out and reuse it again, would that be of benefit to the industry? Doctor?
It is such an important area for us to be able to absorb and then reutilize materials. And so we see applications in many, many fields, including in the mining sector, of those types of technologies, absolutely.
One of the things I'll tell you that I think is very problematic for us is our patent process, because it's first to file instead of first to discover. And since we went that way, we have just destroyed the entrepreneur. We really have, because now you have to defend yourself in the PTAB board. And mining is no different. Mining is no different on that. So I'll also put that patent. Now, I'm going to stop right there because about the same time is given. I'm going to ask you one last question, all of you. What was the one question you wanted asked and it wasn't asked, and what's its answer? We'll start with you, Mr. Donahue.
Well, obviously, you all did a very good job, and I wouldn't take that away from you. I think what it comes down to me is how does, this was touched on a little bit more, but I'd love to double click on, is how do we mitigate geologic risk and bring more investment to this industry? That is our core mission here. One of the questions that someone asked was, well, how do our rivals succeed? How do they succeed in exploration? They succeed by having a higher tolerance for geologic risk, because they're looking for copper, not returns. We are looking for, market-beating expectations. We're looking for returns for investors and things like that. And so one of the missions that we have, and I'll talk about it all day, is lowering that risk, bringing investment into earlier stages.
Okay. Mr. Kangaroo.
Thank you for that question. I believe, like my fellow testifiers here, that it was a very robust discussion. I think we covered quite a few topics here over a wide range. I think one item that I would like you to consider is how can we promote collaboration between various technology providers, because the interest level and the stakeholder interest is different for different players. Some people want to do something at a certain scale. Some people don't want to do it at a different scale. So I think if we can bring together various technology players in a consortium type partnership where they're all aligned on, speed to get technology to commercialize, I think that would really benefit this industry and this country quite a bit. Thank you.
Doctor.
Thank you. The question I wish that one of you would have asked was, what is your message to young people who are thinking about a career in mining or mining engineering today? It was asked in a different way, perhaps. But as I'm thinking about this, and hats off really to the National Science Foundation, they had a program that's called the Convergence Accelerator, that's bringing together multiple disciplines: artificial intelligence, quantum, advanced computing, mining engineering, chemical engineering and processing. And it's been part of the support that the study that was cited a bit earlier on, issued by the Colorado School of Mines and Science magazine a few months ago, it was its foundation. It's a time for young people. If you want to make a difference in the world, if you want to address the challenges that really matter to our future, to our economy, think about joining the mining sector. These are the things we care about: clean energy, a clean environment, sustainability, U.S. security, advanced manufacturing, the semiconductor industry, advanced medical technologies. These all depend on minerals that have to be discovered and mined and processed and recycled responsibly. So if you want to make a difference in the world, if you're looking for global relevance and immediate opportunity, join the mining workforce.
Mr. Lugansky.
Thank you very much. I mean, your questions were great, but maybe before I would like to add, as a company that has over 120,000 people, and with mining group is relatively small, what we've been looking for is how to make mining cool. how for people to come and joining us. And so we now see chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, geologists, petrophysicists want to join our group to bring that innovation that they may have learned in other industry. I think the other thing is looking at mining holistically. I think sometimes we're looking at how do we find some geological resource, and then how do we extract, and how do we process in a very disjointed way. And I think by combining it into sort of from initial prospecting to the point of refining as a holistic system is very important. Because right now we are dealing with risk in a very individual way rather than looking at this risk as a combined risk. A biggest example I see is I worked in the mining industry for quite a few years. And by not properly understanding the geology, you're not building the right plant. You're not using your electricity, your human resources, your other resources effectively. Then your cost escalates. And then you run into a shutdown of that facility. And so a lot of money, a lot of effort is wasted by not looking at it holistically. Thank you very much.
I'll tell you what, yeah, you hurt my feelings because you haven't watched my Mineral Mondays. That's what I was thinking was going to be really cool, was I talk about different elements, you know, and what they're for and what they do. So that was a real cool deal. So I think there's going to be a lot more questions from some of the members on the thing, so we'll ask you to respond to those in writing.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask that we submit this for the record. The
Sure.
byproduct recovery from U.S. metal mines could reduce import reliance for critical minerals. Thank you.
It's so, without objection, so offered. Under Rule 3, members of the committee may submit questions to the subcommittee clerk by 5 p.m. on Monday, December 8th. Hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for these responses. If there's no further business, subcommittee's adjourned.
Thank you so much.
Turn up for a second.